But I would very much like to hand over to Dan, my colleague, who does an amazing job with our net zero team and actually helps us all understand the challenges of carbon footprinting and net zero and all of those aspects. So, Dan, very much over to you, please. And we look forward to hearing what you have to say to us this morning. So thank you.
Superb. It's really, really great to be here. First and foremost, Jane, if you could just give me a yes to tell me you can see the slides, and then I know I'm all good.
Yep, all good to go, Dan.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so in fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to share that one. Here we go. Otherwise, yeah, I'm going to have the updated pictures in. Yeah, fantastic. Super duper. Okay, here we are. Well, good morning, everyone. It's really great to be here. Really fantastic to be with Peer Ngage. I know of the great work you do. I know you do a lot of great work together in kind of your respective cohorts, which I think fits really nicely into this subject because there is a lot of collaboration. There is a lot of learning from our peers. That's very much, you know, a key theme to anything new like net zero, and it is pretty new relative to kind of our businesses and conventional business practice. So very interesting times currently, as you all know, and businesses have to do more than ever, don't they, to stay afloat and stay competitive. We know the environment is moving more into the forefront, and whilst it's also overlapping with many other key themes within your business. So inflation, energy insecurity, whatever it is, often environment or climate change can have an indirect element to it. However, there are threats, and from them threats, there are also real opportunities, which is partly what I want to talk about today. These opportunities can help mitigate costs and ultimately help that bottom line, which is the priority for all of us, isn't it? For those who don't know me, I'm Dan Cope. I'm the Climate Change Programme Manager at BBF and Ngage. I've been with the organisation now for about 6 years, bit over that, and things really are changing at an incredible pace in this space, which is fantastic. We have a diverse group of businesses in the room. Some things will be relevant to you, some things won't be as relevant, but I'm really hoping that every slide really has at least one theme where you think, oh, that was useful to me. I, gained something from that. We're going to have 2 little breakout sessions as well, where I'm going to pose some questions to you. You can go away and, really let the good stuff flow and bring it back. So we speak of pragmatism, and 89% of SMEs recognise that sustainability is an important issue for their business. All of you are in the room today. I'm thinking you probably feel similar. However, 40% do not actually know what this means in practical terms. So, 40% is huge, and it also contributes towards that 90%. So what we know is businesses appreciate there's an issue and recognise they have to do something about it, but they don't know what approach to take. I think wrongfully sometimes this is seen as, inaction equals laziness from businesses. What we're seeing with the kind of hundreds of businesses we're working with on this topic is actually businesses are intrepid and fearful of making the wrong decisions, putting a foot wrong, and that is what's stopping them really from getting off the starting block. So let's explore some of these themes in the session. So we'll go through kind of the current outlook, some energy efficiency improvements that can be made, but then we're going to go on to the knowledge disconnect, a lot more around behavioural approaches and strategies, talking about the financial benefits of planning ahead, setting an environmental statement, and then a quick talk on net zero books. It's going to be a nice session though, and it can be very interactive. So the current outlook, we hear an awful lot at the moment. We don't always appreciate the gravity or the scale of some of these impacts. I think it's really rational for businesses that we deal with the problems of today and not the problems of tomorrow. So it's going to be something that businesses feel they can put off, or perhaps they don't make that conscious decision to put it off, but they put it off nonetheless. Let's have a look what's happening in the UK though. I've just pulled some headlines here, and these all were in the last 2 years. So train speeds limited over train buckling heatwave fears. So when the temperatures go over 30 Celsius, I'm sure you can all remember the trains having to go extremely slow if they could run at all. Has a huge impact on goods, of course, and the movement of people. Reservoirs drying up. We saw this in the southeast, didn't we? And that's a very real reality. So we often think about water always being available to drink, but a lot of businesses obviously use huge quantities, and any impact here will have a direct result on industry. Cars driving on melting roads sounds like going through water. So tarmac, again, when you start going over 30 Celsius, actually the heat of the tarmac is significantly more. You don't have to worry about this, but these are kind of those existential factors which are going to have an impact. You may not see it right now, but we know the hottest years on record have been in the past couple of decades. So this will definitely intensify. UK electric prices have risen faster than any other developed country. So we're starting to see energy rates peter off a little, which is fantastic. However, what I would say is economists always seem to be optimistic at present when it comes to energy costs. We only need to see one more global shift, one more global action, and insecurity will follow pretty dramatically, as we saw with the Ukraine invasion. That could happen. We know there's troubles elsewhere, that these pressures will continue and only get worse. Top of that, the heat is impacting productivity. So we know employees are really impacted by heat. Of course, it's one of our basic kind of requirements, isn't it? Or the temperature we're in and how well we can work. This is both hot and cold. So in particular, we're going to see much hotter summers with levels far more intense. As said, these issues will intensify and increase in frequency. So that's kind of the doom and gloom. We're not going to go on about that too much. Oh, there you go. That's a model of South Bucks in 25 years for you. Okay, so climate change impacts on the UK. So we've seen the headline, but what does this mean? As I said, energy insecurity, really big issue. It could impact us all, both commercially and domestically. Significant growth in air conditioning requirements. These aren't in any particular order, but we are seeing so many more businesses approach us asking about air conditioning to cool offices. And again, that's going to put a new demand that wasn't there historically. In the UK, by and large, we can make do without air conditioning. Actually, this is a reality for many other countries, and it will become a reality for us and just further exacerbate the issues on the energy supply. As I said, an increase in those hotter, drier summers and warmer, wetter winters. Well, wet sounds good because we think, well, we need the water, but this is not coming in the seasons really, or kind of the levels that we are built for in the UK. And this will have an impact on the land. It will have an impact on agriculture and the crops we can grow. That'll shift in 20 to 30 years. Our climate will be far more similar to Spain, and I know immediately think, oh, Spain, that sounds quite nice. It won't be, will it? Of course, we know with it will come an awful lot of bad. The 10 top warmest years on record for the UK have occurred since 2002. Really depressing, isn't it? We said about the train lines and the melting of the roads, longer periods without waters, crop yields impacted. This is a really interesting one. To get businesses, properties, future-proof in order to be net zero and ready for kind of these weather conditions we talk about, you're expecting to spend about a quarter of the business's value in reinvestment to make it future-proof. So if your property's worth £1 million, you could expect it's going to cost about 250,000. So this is really astronomical levels of investment needed across the country. Beauty with energy efficiency measures, though, is that so long as they're installed and recommended in the correct circumstances, they have a very measurable and real impact. This is a session on its own, so I've kept it to just one slide. As I know not everyone can make these investments. Of course, to make these capital investments, it requires that upfront money and a stronger cash flow. Again, this is coming at the wrong time for businesses, isn't it? What we recommend to businesses, because every business is different, is actually take a look at what is important to you as an organization. We just do these little radar graphs. We just do these on Excel. It's effectively measuring what the business thinks is their priority. And every business will have a different priority. For some, it will be aesthetics within the space. For some, it might be back end, and therefore that's not a consideration. It might be the staff's productivity, for instance. But yeah, as I said, the biggest priority is that no two businesses will be the same. I say this as, we're often told, you should do this, you should have a heat pump, it won't be right for everyone. So we shouldn't be telling everyone to take those actions. Okay, now we're going to go on to some behavioural elements for the rest of the session. So just wanted to touch on those capital approaches, investments that can be made. They're really important, but again, not as open to those who perhaps don't have the funds to invest. Well, what do I mean by the knowledge disconnect? Well, actually, this is a key theme we work through with businesses. Comes in kind of many shapes and sizes, but within it, there's strong financial opportunities, which I know is very much the theme of today. So we all have great ideas across the company, as we know. That really is from kind of the higher level management, the owners, the people who are in the room today, but also down to the operational staff, those on the ground, those in the know, those very hands-on. I know this seems obvious, but it's really imperative that this connects with you, and we'll go into it a bit more. But you may have a flat hierarchy, you may be the only, you may be a one-person band, and that's fine. But we all have a unique insight. We all have something different to bring, and actually that contribution from others can actually highlight some real strong opportunities. So yeah, we have that green message that comes down from the board, but we also have the green message from the employees. Just an example here, it's baristas in a coffee shop, isn't it? But obviously their experience is going to be a lot different. What are their experiences like? Well, we know that for the MDs, they've got that strong high-level operation understanding, so supply chain, more overarching understanding of pressures within that sector. Also funding, they don't fund, business owners won't always share this with the whole company. That's absolutely fine, and shouldn't be that way, but they will know the level, you will know the level of investments that could be made there when it comes to funding any future opportunity. Also oversight, so the day-to-day running costs will very much be with higher management there. And lastly, that greater financial incentive to save. One hopes business owners, shareholders have an even bigger incentive to ensure that those costs are kept to a minimum. But let's look at those employees in this. Let's think of those baristas in this instance. So strong knowledge of day-to-day activity, absolutely, it goes without saying, doesn't it? Far greater insight to the coal face. I mean, at the end of the day, if a customer complains about plastic cups, who are they going to complain to? It's going to be the barista. Maybe it's going to be a customer services email, which again will be picked up, more by operational staff, again at the coal face, but a really, really important insight. Greater personal impacts from the environmental elements. So, for instance, if we look at the coffee shop, they're working there, they're in the space, they're seeing what's working well, what's not working well. Perhaps recycling the coffee grinds is difficult because storing them at the back of the coffee shop is difficult. They're kind of navigating around it, they're having to deal with that, whereas perhaps the owners may not. Of course, that isn't always the case. Often the owner could be there getting their hands dirty, but even so, they might be in the room but still not see all of the opportunities that their staff are spotting also. And lastly, they have low to no spending power, which does limit significantly how much they can do. But of course, it means there's that need to close this knowledge disconnect. And these are very practical approaches. So if we think, I said about the example of recycling at the top, the comparison of splitting different recyclables up, and at the base, how is that being stored? Is it getting in the way? How how is it being seen by the customers or clients? That's also important because it's that front end again, and that's often the storefront, isn't it? No pun intended there. But as I said, really important last one here, that if you are self-employed and working individually, or there's just a couple of you, you are, I know the all-knowing then, because you're both at the top and the bottom. That's absolutely fine, but it's really important you still expose yourself to these opportunities. So if that's networking, if that's getting more involved in events like this, that's great, but it's something you really, really must do. So listening to your employees. What is closing this knowledge disconnect? Well, the first thing you can do is actually surveying. We do this a lot for the environmental steps we take within our organisation, but it's something that's very practical, hands-on, it's easy to do. Effectively, it's about recognising everyone has a voice. It sounds very cliche and contrived. The moment you do, though, we found that actually employees have some really novel approaches and smart ideas they can bring to the company. We also see a lot of the enthusiasm from lower staff. By lower, I'm talking operational, myself included. We see kind of this galvanized effort often, and we often find our net zero champions within those staff. So surveying is really important. Some key themes there: keep it simple and short, allow it to be anonymized. We found that when we did that, we had much greater feedback, both the good and the bad, which is really helpful to drive your direction. Ask an open-ended question: is there something we could do differently? And just see what comes out there. Two examples here. One, we did one, a business we work with did. Example one wanted to find out how people were working from home and what emissions were being created there. This was part of our carbon footprint. We obviously surveyed staff. We did it anonymous. We kept it extremely simple. But even here, we still made a mistake. It's funny, Jane's in the room, but actually we went out with heating types. Is it gas or electric? What do you have? And Jane said, actually, there's a couple of us in the company who have oil heating. So again, even we think we know what we're doing, can make mistakes there, and that's okay. But it's really important. It's really important to get it sense checked, and it's really important to feedback any results you get. There's another example there with commuting survey that a business that we work with undertook to try and tackle emissions from staff and their kind of commuting miles, which was fantastic. Oh, LPG gas, there we go. Thank you very much, Jane. But the point still stands. You can think you've got all the answers, but it's not always the case. So surveying staff, listening is really important. This is a two-way conversation. Okay, we're going to have a first breakout session now. Just got some questions here that you can just muse over together. Now, you don't have to answer them all at all, and they won't all apply to you, but I'm really looking to see what we've got in here. So for energy efficiency measures, what has your business undertaken? Anything that resulted in a financial win, so this is capital investment. Anything that did not work as well, or you perhaps were disappointed with the outcome, were you let down by the installer? You don't have to name them. Let's hear. It's really good to know what the good and the bad are. How do you communicate with staff? So going on to some of those behavioural themes. Really interested if you talk about your strategic objectives. Again, if you don't, that's absolutely fine. That's part of what we're here to talk about today. And yeah, lastly, any examples where a new approach was adopted as a direct result of employee contribution? So something where your staff on the ground said, you know what, this would actually be a really good approach for us moving forward. Something that could be completely left field and practical, but something that made a real considerable difference. If we could come back in 10 minutes, that would be fantastic. So I'm thinking at like 10:06. Hello, everyone. Fantastic. Everyone's very efficient on the time, aren't they? That's fantastic. I think we are all back in the room. So I know some of you are in a room together as a group, so don't mind who kind of speaks on these. And I think it's just worth 5 minutes to see if there's any little nuggets that came out of your conversation. So firstly, when we consider the energy efficiency measures, Has anyone done anything on base, kind of on their premises, that they feel has been really effective? It's made a big difference to their business. Is there anyone who's done anything and they think, actually, you know what, it was not the most impactful thing and it might have been a waste of time? Really open. Or if not, we can of course move on to some of those more behavioural things, which I know you'll all have by the bucket load.
Hello, I'm going to speak for the group.
Brilliant, James. Go for it.
So, on obviously a lot of us had energy efficient light bulbs and water treatment and that. We've also got Hilary Hopkins. We've got a green team, which is staff members feeding into where we can say paper or other issues, litter picking, and also other policies they've come up with to help us make the office more efficient or environmentally friendly. We also had a talk about recycling of boxes in our group, or repurposing them. Is that right? Yeah, repurposing them as opposed to recycling them. And car policies, planning routes, we discussed as well. And we also moved on to B Corp, which is on a side tangent, I think.
Oh, that's really interesting stuff there. Really some interesting topics that were covered. I think it's interesting you went into the elements of energy efficiency on site that are impacted by behavioural elements. It's funny you say about recycling and waste. It's one of the most kind of visible elements, isn't it, of, I guess, climate change, the environment, I always think, because it's one that we all, it's universal, waste is, isn't it, to every business and individual. And also it's very practical. We can see kind of the outcome of waste, can't we? It's also interesting you said about the reuse of the packaging. Again, it's a front end, very visible, I guess, action that you can take in order to demonstrate to both, you know, customers and staff of what you're doing, but also cut down the costs. I think there's a huge element to be said there when it comes to packaging. Packaging is something that over the last decade has really changed. It used to be 10 years ago that actually the most important element was the experience of opening that box that the consumer had. Secondary was how it's made up and then how that'll be discarded. What people have come to see is actually now that consumer shift slightly is wanting to also see, can I recycle this at the end point? Do I have to just throw it into the grey bin, which is not ideal. On those other themes there, has anyone else got anything? So we had communicating with staff, and I know James brought some of them themes up, but also any new approaches that were brought by the team. Any further comments? And it's fine if not, of course. The important thing is, that is absolutely fine, but the important thing, it's because you're all talking so much to your staff. You're all thinking, well, we know all this, Dan, and that is absolutely fine. It's brilliant. Janet has got some great stories, ... It's the ... that worries me. ...
No,
Please,
I was
Janet.
thinking one of the things that's worked really well for us, not so much staff, but business partners. We've worked with our warehouse. They were very conscious that a lot of our packaging, when they sent things out, we weren't using the whole box space. There was sort of empty box size. So we've worked with them to sort of standardise boxes and then gone back to our suppliers and asked them to deliver in certain box sizes so that we don't have wasted space with empty carriage as such. But we've also then looked at our sizing of boxes to make sure that we use the most of a standard size box, that we make our boxes the most efficient use of that box. And then we've taken out all the elements that weren't recyclable, like any pieces of foam or embossed foil that couldn't be recycled, and then looked at all of our plastic to see if we could do recyclable plastic instead. So we've done a huge piece of work with our warehouse and with our suppliers. So it's not just staff, it's sort of going back down the chain.
No, that's a really fantastic insight. I wonder those conversations up the supply chain, so with your suppliers, how receptive did you think they were, Janet? Was it a struggle? Were they quite on board? How did it go?
It depends on which market you're in. So the Italians, fortunately, have brought in a very strict law about recycling packaging. So our Italian suppliers were very onto it because they needed to do it. Our German suppliers were kind of like, what do you mean the environment? Which is surprising, really. And some of our Asian suppliers were definitely, we were doing a full education piece with them about the planet and the environment. And we continue to do that. That's quite a pushback constantly. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting the way you frame that as an education piece. And I think that really, it's nuanced, but it's really important. And there will be, you know, suppliers, they will have that first conversation, won't they, with one of their consumers, such as yourselves. Someone will bring this topic up to them. And actually, it is an education process that needs to take place on their part. Very much similar to what Janet shared there, I think we've seen with other businesses. Some suppliers have been really good and have kind of hit the ground running with this. Others have been really difficult. I also think it depends, of course, on your buying power. If you are someone who can buy, you know, much stronger levels, of course, you get a bit more autonomy, don't you? But ultimately, this pressure will grow. Will just continue to grow and grow and grow on suppliers. So it's great that you keep those conversations and those education pieces going. So everyone's heard it now. If you want to clean up your supply chain, head to Janet and Delilah Cosmetics, and you're going to be in very safe hands. Right, okay, we'll move on, but that's really great input. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I'm going to talk just a little bit about planning ahead. And I know I'm rushing these things, they're such wide themes, but as I said, I'm just hoping you'll take some little nuggets from them. Planning ahead is really important, so certainly in the current climate, because there are so many distractions to our business. There's so many new controversies that we have to deal with, that we really need to keep this compass direction kind of, you know, in the view, so that we ensure we're not going to get distracted, curtailed, you know, in those plans, which I think crises and issues that impact our business are just becoming more frequent, aren't they? I think we've all recognized that over the past 5 years or so, and it's something I think soberingly we'll have to continue to deal with. But a long-term plan is much better when plotted out. So this is not by any means a good plan. This is simply me with my amazing PowerPoint skills. If you need me to create you anything, just ask, and I'm happy to help. What I've tried to do here is just to put some like visual elements together. And the reason I've done this is to demonstrate to you, look, you don't have to take an overly science approach to this. Of course, that's important, but that will come with time. Technology is improving, knowledge is improving, but don't worry yourself too much at this stage with knowing, you know, the emissions related to every factor and how they change and the stream of that. You will get lost in it, you know, you really will. It's a field in itself. But I've just put some ideas out here, and this is what you could do. You could just think, right, let's plot some dates out, or let's plot that end date and see how we're going to get there, right? These very typical approaches for kind of project management. But there's some short-term wins here, which are important. So you can focus on the short terms, those behavioural changes, some we've talked about, light touch interventions, making repairs really, really important. You know, walk around the site, and if you've got compressors, you know, old compressors can leak up to 90% of their air, which just means they're working 10 times harder than they need to. And it can really distort an energy profile for a business. I can't tell you how much people have saved from just replacing a compressor, but it's not just compressors, it's absolutely everything that leaks energy. The building is like a big sieve, and it's just about, you know, capturing all them stress points. Then once you've set some perhaps short-term targets, look a bit more to the medium term, the 1 to 5 years. So perhaps develop that environmental strategy a little bit more. You'll be perhaps a little bit more confident in the 2nd and 3rd year of your approach. You could consider machinery upgrades. Motors in a lot of machinery have changed significantly. Older motors run at fixed speeds. We won't get too much into it, but there's a lot that can be done there. This is what you want to do. It doesn't have to look as amazing as mine. Don't worry, you won't get it that amazing, but you could even write this as a list, you know, But when you do that, you are going to get more natural confidence in this, and you're going to be able to sell your hopes and your wishes beyond the business. Long term, so 5+ years considerations, that supply chain. Of course, those conversations can start earlier, but in order to get it completely clean, it's going to take a while. Incorporating the triple bottom line. So that's when you report at the end of year, you're also reporting on your emissions as well as your profit. And maybe even, you know, gaining environmental accreditations. James said that B Corp came up. Well, that's great. B Corp's a fantastic opportunity, and there's many other different opportunities businesses can take in terms of accreditation. And there's something for everyone. So again, it's worth looking into. But if you don't do this, you will be lost. You will feel lost because it's such a long-term transition that you know this can't be in mind alone. And also, you want to take your colleagues on that journey. So really important, employees and customers want to know what this looks like. You can feel worried that you might be exposed. What if we're, you know, told off by our customers? We often have businesses who feel that way. Don't worry too much. They're actually better than you think. We see some big, large companies that kind of get taken down because they've made some really bad greenwashing claims. People are a lot more forgiving for SMEs. Be transparent. As long as you always share what you are doing and the approach you've taken, no one can blame you for that. Transparency will protect you against any criticism. I really want to say be confident, because we're seeing businesses now share a lot more on social media and really feeling, yeah, we can actually be in this space, and it's working really well for them. So it's something you should do too. Environmental planning is important. It's, as we've said, it's a collective, getting customers, getting staff involved. It's collective and consistent company mindset for them overarching goals. And as I said, it makes sure we don't get derailed. And whilst we do have other crises that come up, this can kind of stay there, and it's always something we'll be back to. It's a long-term strategy, and not everything will work. That's really important. I've had businesses who we approach and they say, oh, we tried to do X and it was a complete failure, and now we want to, you know, shove the whole thing off. And I get it. It's really frustrating, especially if you've made an investment and you've been misinformed. It's not been as effective. You've been, you know, falsely promised. Perhaps there's been a bit of greenwashing from a supplier to you, and it's not nice. But please don't lose faith in the overarching theme, because actually, when done right, there's huge financial opportunities within this space, and there's also that mitigation of costs. So really implore you, if it doesn't work, that's okay. Learn from it, see what went wrong and how you can improve that in the future. It will help you organically grow this strategy. So it's like once you start, it will just continue and things will add to it just naturally. We see it with businesses, those opportunities will just present themselves more and more, and you'll think, oh, actually, we want to get involved in that. Energy and security, I speak of this a lot. It sounds very doomsday, I know. It's something we really have to be concerned about. I think many years ago, you know, 80s, early 90s, there were brownouts in areas of the country. If people can remember that, industry had to shut down for elements of the day. This is really impacting stuff to our economy and to productivity. That could happen in the future. Only a couple of years ago in the winter, the plans were being drawn up for this very thing. So imagine your business being without energy. This is a potential for us. Now, of course, it's something we should be rational and measured about, but many businesses now are taking solar. From businesses we work with, it used to be about 15% through our grant programs would take solar. Now through our grant programs, none in books, I'm afraid, 60% are solar. But this is because businesses are absolutely seeing the importance of solar within the UK and the role that plays in protecting our environmental trajectory. It will also ensure you're ahead of those environmental regulations. So Janet spoke about laws that have been brought in Italy, and that's a really good point. It's not just domestic laws that actually impact business here, is it? It's all us, because whether it's the supplies we're getting, whether it's our customers overseas, it's going to have an impact. We know next year's CBAM, which is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, is coming in. That's coming in January. And some of you might be thinking, I don't know what that is. Well, if you're exporting to Europe, that's coming in on January the 1st, I believe. So that's going to have an impact. And it's something you're going to have to be measuring by law. So it's about keeping in front of them and knowing what's there. Okay, last topic. You'll be thinking, oh, thank God, it's creating an environmental mission statement and mission. So this is really important. Some of you will have kind of those founding principles, your mission objectives, what you're doing as an organization, but some of you might not have that and may not have given it a thought. I've got some examples here. Not saying that the companies are phenomenal. So Starbucks, another B Corp company, shared planet is our commitment to do business in ways that are good for people and planet. So shared planet is very much their own theme. They've created their own project, but it's in there. Apple, the word environmental appears in 7 of Apple's 8 guiding principles. So again, they are seeing the opportunity here. I am cynical. I'm not saying these companies are the most egalitarian, and charitable businesses, but they recognize that there's a real opportunity within this, and this is the future direction, and this is what they need to do to remain viable and profitable. Etsy, hold ourselves accountable through regular, transparent reporting on our progress. So the word transparent, accountable, really important themes, and very plain English. They've not gone heavy with the science. It's just telling you what they're doing. Lastly, one a bit closer to home, it is our Net Zero Ambition Award winners, Moogies. Moogies, being mindful, encapsulates our commitment to operating as sustainable as possible and placing the environment at the forefront of everything we do. So again, sharing their mission with their customers, and it's working for them. Finally, now I did this told her in the 11th hour, and got in touch with a business who's in the room who, this is not to say they are teachers' favourite by any stretch. You're all fantastic, but I happened to be on Delilah Cosmetics' website, not for myself, I will add, but I was perusing it, and I actually was really chuffed. So I just included, and I did tell them at the last minute I was going to do this. So I just wanted to draw attention to their webpage. So I have this area called Our Principles. Fantastic. It very much is everything Delilah believes in is on this page. It's a page dedicated to their mission, to what they want to do. It's not overly sciencey. It's reaching out to the customer. It's very much speaking to the consumer. It's clear from the language used. It's hard to see perhaps, but in the top right, it says proud to be 100% vegan and cruelty free. That space on the website, certainly when you're retail, that's real estate, isn't it? This is space we don't want to waste. That appears on every single page. It is always there as a constant, reminding the consumer, oh, your purchase is X and Y. So whatever that may be, I'm not saying everyone has to be vegan and cruelty free with their products, of course not. But whatever your mission is, are you sharing it with your business, with your consumers? And if not, why not? They perhaps would really like to know about it. They've got this, you can see in the bottom right, it's like almost like a smartphone style video that plays as you move through, so it doesn't get in the way. If you've got 2 minutes after, go on the website. Don't do it now whilst you're listening to me, because you'll get distracted. But just have a little look and think, is there something we could do similar to this? Because I'm sure there will be. Again, on there, they've got look into the future. So we spoke about that. Look into the future. It will really help you with the now. Well, they've actually said what they want to do in the future moving forward. Strong vision, and it takes customers on the journey, doesn't it? Also, again, very simple, plain language. They've got nice, clear logos, so any consumers can see kind of what they're getting. It's that transparency we speak of. So I won't gush any more over Delilah, and I know you all have amazing web pages, and some of you'll be thinking, Dan, why didn't you go on my website? It's even better than that. I apologise, but you know what I'm getting at here, and the benefits in there. So Delilah Cosmetics, fantastic, really good stuff. Capturing those achievements in real time. Sorry for the cliche image there. How many environmentalists does it take to change a light bulb? Look, keep all your environmental wins in one location. Just keep journaling them. It sounds simple. Even being here today is a win. It's something you've done. It's part of your journey. It will help you with future procurement opportunities. That's a fact. Helps to guide and provide regular feedback to staff. Make it a recurring agenda item. So this is what we've done within our company. So Philippa will talk about it at our Q&A session we have with her as a company-wide thing. And again, that's kind of a tell to our employees. This is a really important theme for us. Wins come in all shapes and sizes, as I said. So you might not think it's a big win, but it really is. LinkedIn, Moogie is another example. They put on Instagram one of their staff folding napkins to say how they'd gotten rid of disposable napkins. Real simple video, real simple message, but effective. And I've shared it with you today. So it obviously worked for me. Treat it as your company CV. That's what we're looking for. So you might not think it's a win today. Note it down. And when you look back at all the activities you've done, all the posts you've put out, it might actually add up to something nice. Great. Right. The final breakout session, and then you can break out for real and never come back. Do you have a mission statement? Do you think it's greenwashing? When does it become greenwashing? Are you worried about greenwashing? Do you capture your environmental wins? I'm talking about journaling there, dear diary and everything. Are you doing that? Are you keeping a log of what you're doing? And ultimately, do you believe all these results and efforts will, translate to sales or, stronger profit if it's a reduction of costs? Go to your breakouts, talk amongst yourselves. Let's see what we come up with. And then I'm hoping for a little contribution when you return on those themes. Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone. Superb. Okay, I think we're all back now. Okay, great. So we've got a good few questions on here. So there was something for everyone, I knew. And I did that on purpose so that everyone would have an opportunity, should they wish, of course, to provide their thoughts. So Jane, in your group or to Elizabeth's group also, anything that came out in your conversations of particular interest?
Pete and I had a good conversation regarding greenwashing and what is greenwashing. But look, we're a small business. We work a lot from home. Have no output really. We do net zero just through carbon offset, whatever. But it was interesting. We were talking about the usage of Zoom and how that has cut down, obviously, on our carbon footprint. How it's reduced the use of our cars. And Pete rightly said, well, if it wasn't for COVID, how socially acceptable would Zoom be today, or Teams or whatever? Because COVID forced it to be a socially acceptable medium to use. And if that hadn't happened, how difficult would it have been to convince a person that actually this face-to-face meeting doesn't need to happen? We don't need to both get in our cars and meet at a central point. We could just do it here and look after the environment a little bit and still have the same result. So what is greenwashing, and what is the difference of greenwashing versus socially acceptable actions and that just happen to have a positive green outcome?
Yeah, Sharon, some really, really important themes you brought up there. So thank you, first of all. Firstly, to the greenwashing front, I think it's such a widely used term, and it's used to cover a broad array of topics. When I hear greenwashing, to me, there's two things that stand out. One is kind of an intentional misleading of consumers. So we've seen that kind of let's think the VW emission scandal. That was something that was done intentionally, very much to mislead us and trick us almost into feeling we could be guilt-free in a purchase, perhaps, or that something was being achieved there that wasn't. For a smaller business, I think it can be inadvertent stuff too. Now, I think it can be when, you know, you could find a solution, a business could find a solution, and it may be an improvement. It might not be the right improvement. It might cause additional issues. I really want to stress, though, when it comes to the greenwashing, again, it's that point of, as long as you're transparent in what you're saying, what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish, as long as you spell that out, really the greenwashing seems to dissipate, because where issues do exist, you will identify them without them being a huge controversy. We have instances where we've put things out and kind of a customer or a member of BBF have given us a comment and said, oh, have you thought about X? And actually it's a really good point, but it's not been that they've actually tried to take over our social media saying you're terrible for doing this. It's been quite a rational, oh, had you thought of this? I think when you start to open that conversation up, it's two-way, not just with staff, but with consumers. So I think the greenwashing won't exist so long as you share that journey. I think we've been sharing our journey personally for about 4 years now. And we feel pretty confident, and we very rarely get any criticism of greenwashing or the kind. You said that, you know, we don't have huge emissions. What we do have, we offset at the end. That's fantastic. Now, there will be some people who'll say, offsetting's really bad. It doesn't fix the problem. It's a bottomless well that you're throwing your money into. Some projects will be like that, there's no doubt. You do have to do your research. But the important thing is that you're saying there, that's what we do. So you're not saying, look, we're perfect. You're saying we do have some low residual emissions at the end that we get rid of via offsetting. I think there's nothing wrong with that, and it's a very clear message you're going out with. You also went on to, which I think is equally as insightful, the fact of Zoom and these changes we see, and these big step changes we see in society. It's a really interesting one, because I'd say mask wearing was similar, and I didn't think that was something that would be taken up by the public by and large. And it was interesting, it wasn't until it was, and we are very stubborn as people. And then all of a sudden we see this large step change and shift. Zoom's another example of that. We will be seeing more of these kind of disruptions, which force us to be innovative, force us to find those new opportunities. Otherwise, we won't survive. You speak of Zoom and the benefits, you know, it brought during that time. Not everyone managed that transition effectively, and many didn't make it through. So people will get lost in these future transitions. But I do believe that external factors will be the key drivers. And I think that's a good thing. I think, you know, we'll see some really horrendous things. Energy costs will, in the next 5 years, go astronomical, and it will be horrendous. I mean, all the energy firms currently, the amount of bad debt they're sitting on, it's going to be such a controversy later this year. I mean, you're talking billions of debt, and it's growing. We were saying on the news, oh, energy costs are coming down, great. The accumulated debt is unbelievable, both domestically and commercially. So I think these types of existential pressures will force us all to find new solutions. Absolutely. And those solutions won't always be perfect. With Zoom, people say, well, you know, cloud computing's terrible. It's got a huge carbon factor. Yes, it does have a carbon footprint. I would argue it's in many instances better to do that virtual call, but that does not replace the need for face-to-face business. It's a mix of the two, isn't it? As I'm sure many of us on the call would agree. Some really good points there, though. Thank you, Sharon. I know everyone's saying, oh God, Sharon's points were that good. My point doesn't seem as good now. It will be. So please, has anyone else got anything they'd like to add at all? That's okay.
I'm being picked on here. I'm being bullied here. I am actually.
Good. Good.
Well, I think the observation I've got from this is probably that we are doing a lot more than we realise, but not getting the credit for it, or not giving ourselves the credit for it. For instance, our main supplier of products, they have an environmental mission statement, and obviously all the products that we get from them are subject to that. We're also in the British Pest Control Association, and they have a mission statement with lots of codes of best practice, and we comply with all those. But we don't actually publicise the fact that we are members of that, or that we work under their mission statements, if you like. So we're not giving ourselves the credit for that or making that known. So I think that's what it is. Apart from being bullied, I think that's the biggest thing I've learned out of this.
We were also talking that it's very important for recruitment. So for the accountancy firm, do you say you recruit sort of 20 odd people a year from university, that they're actually getting questioned now about their environmental policy to help them with recruitment? So it also has that impact that's not financial, but can help recruit people into your company.
No, again, really, really good points. It's Bill, isn't it? Or Dave?
Not Bill.
Oh, you were muted.
The company's called Old Bill. I'm young Dave. Don't worry.
I knew that as soon as I said it. That's why I replaced it with Dave. Dave, that's a great point. Often we're working with people in our supply chains who have taken steps that we just don't shout about. They don't shout about, and in turn, you don't shout about it to your customers. But it's very important to them. Again, I'd said about journaling as you go, and these little things that they don't always seem big, but actually, if you just write a paragraph and date it, note it, when you come back in 6 months and look at, you might have 20 things there that you've dated and think, actually, we're on a journey here and we are taking these subtle steps. So, and many of those steps can be steps that your partners have taken, the supply chain. So absolutely share it, because customers are interested in it. It's really good. And recruitment, absolutely, it's a really important theme. We hear a lot, don't we? It sounds contrived. People care more now about just the salary, because they still care about the salary. But you're right, this is a key agenda for a lot of young, well, it's not just young, to be honest, because I know we are seeing people who come through in recruitment from kind of all sectors and ages and groups that are seeing this as a more important element. So again, you're going to retain better skill sets as a result, aren't you? Not just the front end with customers. Really great contribution, everyone. I'm not going to spend long on this because I know we're nearly up for time, but I just wanted to mention Net Zero Books. It's the programme we are running in Buckinghamshire. A couple of you have been on it already, so you know how great it was. Look, we do a lot of the stuff we've been talking about we can help you with. We're very hands-on. It's very independent advice. We help you start your net zero journey, so you get to work with on a one-to-one with one of our net zero team members or myself. We can talk you through really anything that you need to talk through when it comes to the environment to do with your business. We're quite broad here. You get 12 months to our carbon platform on Climate Essentials, which is really super. So you can create your entire carbon footprint, work through it with us, and we do handhold. We're happy to do that. So you must do it if it's something you're interested in. Get during the fantastic events. We'll help you set a net zero target should you wish to. We'll also help graph and map it out. Here we've just got, this is BBFs, but we do this for everyone who works with us. So if this is something you're interested in, it really is a strong opportunity, and we provide you with a comprehensive net zero report with specific actions for you that we work on with you to help you reduce your emissions that are relevant to your business and your activity. They aren't just kind of like install LEDs and you'll save 20%. These are real savings for you at your business premises on your site with your energy costs. So it's very credible in that regard. I just want to say, how does this help the bottom line? Well, it really does. We helped a company called Yippee, who provides a simple way for people to shop online with independent retailers. They went through the system with us, and they've used the report they were given as part of a multi-million investment drive for over 5 million euros. And this was a really important part of it because they had to demonstrate what they're doing towards their net zero journey. So they were over the moon. They've been really happy with the outcome. H-Track, provider of point of care systems, software solutions for the healthcare industry. Well, now we spoke about procurement earlier, many public contracts, I'll say, well, what do you do environmentally? What are your environmental credentials? And if you're not being asked this year, you're probably going to get asked next year. This agenda centrally is obviously at the forefront, and irrespective of what happens politically, I can guarantee these requirements for public procurement will grow and intensify. That's very much what this report can do for you as well. So you can be selfish with this. You know, you can think, well, what do I want out of it? What do we need as an organisation? But, you know, often then things align. Your profit and the environment can align. So I'd say really do come forward, work with us, and let's see what we can do. Clean Air Day week on Friday, 14th of June. This will be an amazing event at the Oculus in Aylesbury. I don't know if anyone's been to the Oculus. I say it's like a mini United Nations, but I don't get out a lot. So that's kind of my take on it. You're all thinking, we're going to go now, United Nations in Aylesbury. Be a great event. We've got, I'm speaking, so what more reason do you need? But we also have a panel of businesses there, an environmental speaker as well as me. So please do come along. There'll be food as well. So it's always a good thing. And very lastly, the Better Business Driving program that Bucks Council are doing, but we're helping to promote because it's a really brilliant opportunity that can help with kind of your fleet, your driving, your mileage. Again, this is around the environment and what you can do to be more environmentally friendly and save money in the process. But you've got a nice QR code there should you wish to attend. If not, you can reach out to me and I'm happy to share. Thank you so much, everyone. You've been brilliant, and we had some great input in the breakout sessions. I really hope that there's something you can all take from it, even if it's not kind of the big hitting takeaway lines, but you know, the little quirky tiddly bits are put in. I think they're just as important, and actually when you start building and accumulating them, you'll see this begin to pick up momentum. And you know, there's people in the room who are a testament to that momentum, and when you start this journey, I think it does snowball, and it gets easier. It doesn't get harder, it gets easier. And it's counterintuitive because you're thinking that's going to get worse as time goes on. It's not. Technology is making it easier, and we're here to support you. So thank you very much. That is it for me, Jane and Elizabeth.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much indeed, Dan. Lots to think about, lots to consider, lots to do probably as well. But it's great to know that you've got a team of people there to help businesses along that way as well. So I'm sure we'll get some reach out from a couple of people here as well. So thank you so much, Dan. Been great to have this morning. So as normal, can we all have a little break now, and we will reconvene. So Elizabeth's team, stay here on this link. Bella, if you're still coming back, I don't know, I know you've got to go. There is another link for effectively us, the second half, if you're able to join that with us. Okay, you're able to do that. Otherwise, everyone, thank you so much. Good to see you all, and catch up with you soon. Thanks very much, Dan.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.